Коста, пичове, направо ще заспа, но все пак имам достатъчно време сега да ви почита малко, така че ще се опитам да не съм толкова монотонен, малко да се инвестна, ще видим колко ще успея. Така, 79-та страница on the trials of travel. When it was time for me to return to Naples from Baia, I easily persuaded myself that a storm was raging, that I might avoid another trip by sea. And yet the road was so deep in mud all the way that I may be thought none the less to have made the voyage. On that day I had to endure the full fate of an athlete. The anointing with which we began was followed by the sand sprinkle in the Naples tunnel. No place could be longer than that prison. Nothing could be dimmer than those torches, which enabled us not to see amid the darkness, but to see the darkness. But even supposing that there was light in this place, the dust, which is an oppressive and disagreeable thing, even in the open air, would destroy the light. How much worse the dust is there where it rolls back upon itself, and being shut in without ventilation, blows back in the faces of those who set it going. So we endured two inconveniences at the same time, and they were diametrically different. We struggled both with mud, with dust, on the same road, on the same way. The gloom, however, furnished me with some food for thought. I felt a certain mental thrill, and a transformation unaccompanied by fear, due to the novelty and unpleasantness of an unusual occurrence. Of course, I'm not speaking to you of myself at this point because I'm far from being a perfect person, or even a man of middling qualities. I refer to one over whom fortune has lost her control. Even such a man's mind will be smitten with a thrill, and he will change color. For Even such a man's mind will be smitten with a thrill, and he will change color. For there are certain emotions, my dear Lucius, which no courage can avoid. Nature reminds courage how perishable a thing it is, and so he will contract his brow when the prospect is forbidding, will shudder at certain apparitions, and will become dizzy when he stands at the edge of a height precipice and looks down. Това е много готино. Това го помня също с това, че природата напомня на човека колко коража, колко чупливо качество е, защото то се изразява в специфични ситуации. Тоест, има хора, които могат да имат повече кораж да се сблъскат с едно нещо, колкото с друго. И отстрани, ако са погледни, един човек може да се каже, той човек има много коража, защото примерно скочи от високо, примерно. Това е всъщност доста наскорошно изживяване, които имах лятото, защото доста неща съм вършил, които са били доста плашещи за хората, но това, примерно, с скачането от високо, за мен винаги е било голям филм. И дори отстрани погледнато въобще не изглежда толкова високо, но в моята глава просто е доста по-голямо нещо и някак си мислех, че мога да приложа този кораж, който имам за различни неща в тази специфична ситуация, но не работи така. Наистина. Едно нещо, което преди ви е плашил много, може да спре в един момент и обратното. Аз не помня да съм имал чак такъв голям страх от високо до такава степен. Явно, може би, колкото повече съм се вглъбявал, че ми е страх, явно е станал все по-голям едва ли човекът е питал каквото е страх. И предимно казвам височини. Да. This is not fear, it is a natural feeling which reason cannot rout. That is why certain brave men most willing to shed their own blood cannot bear to see the blood of others. Some persons collapse and faint at the sight of a freshly inflicted wound. Others are affected similarly on handling or viewing an old wound which is festering. And others meet the sore stroke more readily than they see it dealt. Accordingly, as I said, I experienced a certain transformation, though it could not be called confusion. Then, at the first glimpse of restored daylight, my good spirits returned without forethought or command, and I began to muse and think how foolish we are to fear certain objects to a greater or less degree, since all of them end in the same way. Доста правилно. Наистина, фундаментално повечето ни страхове всъщност, нали, страха от това да умреш. Просто се изразява в други ситуации и някак се е прав, че е доста иронично да те е страх по-малко от това от едно нещо, което би довело до смърт, от друго, което би довело до смърт. Но природата явно е различно нещо, генетично, дали и чисто от това колко често човек го упражнява. Въпреки че явно не е толкова иронично, защото ако не си упражнявал, да речем, ако нямаш книжка, не да кажем, ще шофираш, пак мога да умреш, ама ти нямаш, в смисъл, вероятността е по-голяма, защото ти нямаш уменията да го управляваш. Тоест, тебе ще е страх повече от от което не си изживявал. Тъй, че колко да е иронично реално. По-скоро е логично, защото реално процента на това колко е по-вероятно да умреш, да, е просто по-голям от другия. Защото едва ли не имаш някакъв контрол, някакво знание, опит в случая. Така, For what difference does it make whether a watchtower or a mountain crashes down upon us? No difference at all, you will find. Nevertheless, there will be some men who fear the latter mishap to a greater degree, though both accidents are equally deadly. So true it is that fear looks not to the effect, but to the cause of the effect. Do you suppose that I am now referring to the Stoics who hold that the soul of a man crushed by a great weight cannot abide and is scattered forthwith because it has not had a free opportunity to depart? That is not what I am doing. Those who think thus are, in my opinion, wrong. Just as fire cannot be crushed out since it will escape around the edges of the body which overwhelms it, just as the air cannot be damaged by the lashes and blows or even cut into, but flows back about the object to which it gives place. Similarly, the soul, which consists of the subtlest particles, cannot be arrested or destroyed inside the body, but by virtue of its delicate substance, it will rather escape through the very object by which it is being crushed. Just as lightning, no matter how widely it strikes and flashes, makes its return through a narrow opening, so the soul, which is still subtler than fire, has a way of escape through any part of the body. We therefore come to this question whether the soul can be immortal, but be sure of this: if the soul survives the body after the body is crushed, the soul can in no wise be crushed out, precisely because it does not perish, for the rule of immortality never admits of exceptions, and nothing can harm that which is everlasting. Много красиво, наистина. Право е, честно казано, толкова красив пасаж е. Тия последните някои изречения са невероятни. Аз много пъти съм се ги повтарял и съм ги чел, съм се опитвал да извика други неща и то не съм се опитвал, те се случват нещата, нали? Автоматично, като ги четеш, ги сравняваш с други събития минали. Много, много приятно откъсче. Just as fire cannot be crushed out since it will escape around the edges of the body which overwhelms it. До някаква степен, нали, в крайна смисъл, изключително яко е написано. Нали, до някаква степен оптимистично, което, нали, до някаква степен според мен също е, как да кажа, имаше някакво правило, мисля, че от термодинамиките, нали, че енергията не може нито да е създадена, нито да я създадеш, нито да я унищожиш, защото, нали, тя вече е тук и т.н. Може би малко повърхностно се изразявам, но това помня. Имаше едно от някакви там. Някъде го гледах, не помня къде беше. И това ме напомня също на някакъв подобен закон. Това е изказване него, защото пък е доста старо. Тъй, че доста вероятно да е така, но може и да не е. Да, голям мислител, голямо изказване. Аз на нищо не казах буквално, няма значение. По-рано, още в началото, обясних, че съм доста изморен, хубавичко се оправдахте и че нема си ефтинет. On being. How scant of words our language is, nay, how poverty-stricken. I have not fully understood until today we happened to be speaking of Plato, and 1,000 subjects came up for a discussion, which needed names and yet possessed none. And there were certain others which once possessed but have since lost their words because we were too nice about their use. But who can endure to be nice in the midst of poverty? There is an insect called by the Greeks oestrus, which drives cattle wild and scatters them all over their pasturing grounds. It used to be called Acilus in our language, as you may believe on the authority of Virgil. Near Silarus groves and eke albornoz shades of green. Това още няма го чета, брато. Бах ти загубен. Как да го разбера това нещо, бе? Това е фул с думи, дет не разбирам. После ще си го преведа. Направо се ядосам от време на време. Очевидно, че просто не ги разбирам. Сега ще ви го прочета все пак, нали, евентуално ако някой го разбере, най-вероятно си помни от мене. Near Silarus groves and eke albornoz shades of green-clad oak trees flits an insect, named Acilus by the Romans. In the Greek, the word is rendered oestrus. With a rough and strident sound it buzzes and drives wild the terror-stricken herds throughout the woods. Добре, това не беше толкова. Толкова трудно всъщност. Явно просто тия първите and eke albornoz shades. Това първо малко intimidating. By which I infer that the word has gone out of use, and not to keep you waiting too long, there were certain uncompounded words current, like това е латински май. Cernere ferro inter se, as will be proved again by Virgil. Great heroes born in various lands had come to settle matters mutually with the sword. This settling matters, quote unquote, we now express by the The plain word has become obsolete. The ancients used to say uso instead of usero in conditional clauses. You need not take my word, but you may turn again to Virgil. The other soldiers shall conduct the fight with me, where I shall beat. It is not in my purpose to show by this array of examples how much time I have wasted on the study of language. I merely wish you to understand how many words that were current in the works of Ennius and Accius have become mouldy with age, while even in the case of Virgil, whose works are explored daily, some of his words have been filched away from us. You will say, I suppose, what is the purpose and meaning of this preamble? I shall not keep you in the dark. I desire, if possible, to say the word essentia to you and obtain a favorable hearing. If I cannot do this, I shall risk it even through it put you out of humor. I have Cicero as authority for the use of his word, and I regard him as a powerful authority. If you desire testimony of a later date, I shall cite Fabianus. Careful of speech, cultivated, and so polished in style that he will suit even our nice tastes. For what can we do, my dear Lucilius? How otherwise can we find a word for that which the Greeks call ovoia? Something that is indispensable, something that is natural, substratum of everything. I beg you accordingly to allow me to use the word essential. I shall nevertheless take pains to exercise the privilege which you have granted me with as sparing hand as possible. As sparing a hand as possible. Perhaps I shall be content with the mere right. Yet what good will your indulgence do me, if, lo and behold, I can in no wise express in Latin the meaning of the word which gave me the opportunity to rail at the poverty of our language? And you will condemn our narrow Roman limits even more, when you find out that there is a word of one syllable which I cannot translate. What is it, you ask? It is the word of. Буквално е О с почти нещо като умлаут и В. Ов. Of. Öv. Да знам. You think me lacking in facility, you believe that the word is ready to hand, that it might be translated by quod est. Quod est. Точка, не знам. I notice, however, a great difference. You are forcing me to render a noun by a verb. But if I must do so, I shall render it by quod est. There are 6 ways in which Plato expresses this idea, according to a friend of ours, a man of great learning who mentioned the fact today, and I shall explain all of them to you. If I may first point out that there is something called genus and something called species. For the present, however, we are seeking the primary idea of genus, on which the others, the different species, depend, which is the source of all classification, the term under which universal ideas are embraced, and the idea of genus will be reached if we begin to reckon back from particulars. For in this way we shall be conducted back to the primary notion. Now, quote-unquote, man is a species, and as Aristotle says, no, so is horse or dog. We must therefore discover some common bond for all these terms on which embraces them and holds them subordinate to itself. And what is this? It is animal, quote-unquote, and so there begins to be a genus, animal, including all these terms, man, horse, and dog. But there are certain things which have life, anima, and yet are not animals, for it is agreed that plants and trees possess life, and this is why we speak of them as living and dying. Therefore, the term living things will occupy a still higher place because both animals and plants are included in this category. Certain objects, however, lack life, such as rocks. There will therefore be another term to take precedence over living things, and that is substance. I shall classify substance by saying that all substance are either animate or inanimate. But there is still something superior to substance, for we speak of certain things as possessing substance and certain things as lacking it. What then will be the term from which these things are derived? It is that to which we lately gave an inappropriate name, that which exists. For by using this term they will be divided into species, so that we can say that which exists either possesses or lacks substance. This therefore is what genus is, the primary, original, and, in brackets, to play upon the word, general, quote-unquote. Of course there are the other genera, but there are special genera, man, quote-unquote, being, for example, a genus. For man comprises species by nations, Greek, Roman, Persian, by colors, white, black, yellow. The term comprises individuals also, Cato, Cicero, Lucretius. So man falls into the category genus insofar as it includes many kinds, but insofar as it is subordinate to another term, it falls into the category of species. But the genus, that which exists, in general, has no term superior to it. It is the first term in the classification of things, and all things are included under it. The Stoics would set ahead of this still another genus, even more primary, concerning which I shall immediately speak, after proving that the genus which has been discussed above has rightly been placed first, being, as it is, capable of including everything. I therefore distribute that which exists into these two species, things with and things without substance. There is no third class. And how do I distribute substance? By saying that it is either animate or inanimate. And how do I distribute the animate? By saying certain things have mind, while others have only life. Or the idea may be expressed as follows. Certain things have the power of movement, of progress, of change, of position, while others are rooted in the ground. They are fed and they grow only through their roots. Again, into what species do I divide animals? They are either perishable or imperishable. Certain of the Stoics regard the primary genus as the something. I shall add the reasons they give for their belief. They say, in the order of nature, some things exist and other things do not. And even the things that do not exist are really part of the order of nature. What these are will readily occur to the mind, for example, centaurs, giants, and all other figments of unsound reasoning, which have begun to have a definite shape, although they have no bodily consistency. But I now return to the subject which I promised to discuss for you, namely, how it is that Plato divides all existing things in 6 different ways. The first class of that which exists cannot be grasped by the sight or by the touch or by any of the senses, but it can be grasped by the thought. Any generic conception, such as the generic idea man, does not come with the range of the eyes, but man in particular does, as, for example, Cicero cattle. The term animal is not seen, it is grasped by the thought alone. A particular animal, however, is seen, for example, a horse, a dog. The second class of things which exists, according to Plato, is that which is prominent and stands out above everything else. This, he says, exists in preeminent degree. The word poet is used indiscriminately, for this term is applied to all writers of verse, but among the Greeks it has come to be the distinguishing mark of a single individual. You know that Homer is meant when you hear men say the poet. What then is the preeminent being? God, surely, one who is greater and more powerful than anyone else. The third class is made of things which exist in the proper sense of the term. They are countless in number, but are situated beyond our sight. What are these, you ask? They are Plato's own furniture. So to speak, he calls them ideas, and from them all visible things are created. And according to their pattern, all things are fashioned. They are immortal, unchangeable, inviolable. And this idea, or rather Plato's conception of it, is as follows. The idea is that everlasting pattern of those things which are created by nature. I shall explain this definition. In order to set the subject before you in a clearer light, suppose that I wish to make a likeness of you. I possess in your own person the pattern of this picture, wherefrom my mind receives a certain outline, which is to embody it in its own handiwork. That outward appearance, then, which gives me instruction and guidance, this pattern for me to imitate, is the idea. Such patterns, therefore, nature possesses in infinite number of men, fish, trees, according to which model everything that nature has to create is worked out. In the fourth place, we shall put form, and if you would know what form means, you must pay close attention, calling Pluto and not me to account for the difficulty of the subject. However, we cannot make fine distinctions without encountering difficulties. A moment ago I made use of the artist as an illustration. When the artist desired to reproduce Virgil in colors, he would gaze upon Virgil himself. The idea was Virgil's outward appearance, and this was the pattern of the intended work. That which the artist draws from this idea and has embodied in his own work is the form. Do you ask me where the difference lies? The former is the pattern, while the latter is the shape taken from the pattern and embodied in the work. Our artist follows the one, but the other he creates. A statue has a certain external appearance. This external appearance of the statue is the form, and the pattern itself has a certain external appearance, by gazing upon which the sculptor has fashioned his statue. This is the idea. If you desire a further distinction, I will say that the form is in the artist's work, the idea outside his work, and not only outside it, but prior to it. The fifth class is made of the things which exist. The fifth class is made up of things which exist in the usual sense of the term. These things are the first that have to do with us. Here we have all such things as men, cattle, and things in the sixth class goes all that which has a fictitious existence, like void or time. Whatever is concrete to the sight or touch, Plato does not include among the things which he believes to be existent in the strict sense of the term. These things are the first that have to do with us. Here we have all such things as men, cattle, and things, for they are in a state of flux, constantly diminishing or increasing. None of us is the same man in old age that he was in youth, nor the same on the morrow as on the day preceding. Our bodies are burnt along like flowing waters. Every visible object accompanies time in its flight. Of the things which we see, nothing is fixed. Even I myself, as I comment on this change, am changed myself. This is just what Heraclitus says. We go down twice into the same river and yet into a different river. For the stream still keeps the same name, but the water has already flowed past. Of course, this is much more evident in rivers than in human beings. Still, we mortals are also carried past in no less speedy a course, and this prompts me to marvel at our madness in cleaving with great affection to such fleeting thing as the body, and in fearing lest some day we may die, when every instant means the death of our previous condition. Will you not stop fearing lest that may happen once, which really happens every day? So much for a man, a substance that flows away the falls, exposed to every influence, but the universe too, immortal and enduring as it is, changes and never remains the same, for though it has within itself all that it has it in a different way from that in which it has had it. It keeps changing its arrangement. Very well, say you. What good should I get from all this fine reasoning? Доста добре, че Сенека има някакво чувство за хумор, защото четеше с едно, нали, те затвърждава някакви неща, обаче не мога да кажа, нали, до момента, че е нещо, което... Как да кажа, хубаво е да знаеш как да опишеш неща. Но за момента само това правим, ми се струва. None. If you wish me to answer your question, nevertheless, just as an engraver rests his eyes when they have long been under a strain and are weary, and calls them from their work and feeds them, as the saying is, so we at times should slacken our minds and refresh them with some sort of entertainment. But let even your entertainment be work, and even from these various forms of entertainment you will select, if you have been watchful, something that may prove wholesome. That is my habit, Lucilius. I try to extract and render useful some element from every field of thought, no matter how far removed it may be from philosophy. Не съм много сигурен дали в случая е някакъв conscious effort да ги прави тези неща. Според мен някои хора просто са такива, просто са по-интровертни. И, нали, всеки иска да се предава някаква важност на нещата, които... на нещата, които прави. Сега някой ще каже, примерно, че един човек, който се занимава с музика, си губи времето, защото от чисто финансова гледна точка, примерно, няма му помогне. Да кажем, това е изключително плосък пример. Но за човека, който го практикува това нещо, както Сенека в момента казва, нали, едва ли не, че всеки ентертеймент дори пак е част от работа, това не мисля, че някак се заслужава да се предава като някаква важност или качество на човек, защото хората го правят автоматично. Ако човек иска наистина, има нещо вътрешно да експресне, иска да го извентилира по някакъв начин чрез нещо, те неща се случват автоматично. Не мисля, че трябва да се предава чак толкова много важност на това, че Сенека е голям мислител. Човека просто е умен, може би е бил леко интровертен, щом, нали, прекарва толкова време със себе си, за да може да си изкара тези неща по книгите. Сега това са мои заключения. Аз нищо не знам за него, само книгата му. Тъй, че... Защото по-скоро го казвам, защото отстрани погледнато, ако се чете това, нали, ще се каже човек, виж го този, нали, дори в почивното си време, едва ли не, времето за почивка е за забавление, нали, някакъв грайндър. Малко ма съмнява да е чак, да е точно така, както е описано. Може и да е изгубено в превода. Също съмнявам се човека да иска да излиза по някакъв начин в тая книга. По-скоро според мен така се... Не знам, честно казвам. And how can I be made a better man by the ideas of Plato? What can I draw from them that will put a check on my appetites? Perhaps the very thought that all these things which minister to our senses, which arouse and excite us, are by Plato denied a place among the things that really exist. Such things are therefore imaginary. And though they are for the moment present a certain external appearance, yes, yet they are in no case permanent or substantial. Като мислите като цяло. Мислите са точно така. Nonetheless, we crave them as if they were always to exist, or as if we were always to possess them. Да, точно така. С идеите, Тук има малко в не съм много сигурен в каква дълбочина мога да се влезе на това изречение. Ако имаш така, да си го маркирам това някакъв химикал нещо, бих искал да го засегна това изречение. Или всъщност ще направим така, защото има още 2 страници. Може би колко стана това? 30 минути е добре. Значи в такъв случай ще кажа какво имам по въпроса и мисля да приключваме. Such things are therefore imaginary and though they are for the moment present a certain external appearance, yet they are in no case permanent or substantial. Nonetheless, we crave them as if they were always to exist, or as if we were always to possess them. Тук бих казал, че по-скоро може би тук говорим за идеи и мисли, че да, реално са imaginary неща. И да, за момента имат някакъв external appearance, но тук вече може би има някакво божествено присъствие, според мен, за да може да се напълно да се обоснова, че yet there in no case permanent or substantial. Перманент не са, защото със сигурност не са перманент, защото една мисъл, тя е свежа само в момента, в който се бъде изживяна. Вече след това почва да избледнява и както спомените като цяло с времето малко се избледняват и помним само някакви емоции, някакви специфични такива моменти от истории, които или са ни по-приятни за нас да си я кажем, или и обратното, за да я демонизираме, да се запомни по-лесно едва ли не, подсъзнателно. Но в случая substantial, може би substantial във връзка с това какво говорихме току-що за substance, но същевременно много идеи и много мисли на хора реално, когато бъдат окачествени, физически, става нещо много. И по този начин реално става еволюцията на човека и технологии и т.н. Въпрос е дали всъщност тези идеи, дали дали призма може да се даде към човека и мислите му с идеите му или към природата му. Защото аз примерно съм имал много идеи за много неща, за музика, за някакво изкуство друго, по-различно, по-забъркано, за идеи за моя живот, за идеи с други хора, с жени и т.н. които, много малка част от тях реално са случвали физически, но идеята ми е, че без просто не бих написал yet there are in no case permanent or substantial. Повечето мисли и чувства като цяло идват от нещо, което от някое ядро вътрешно, според мен. Защото, в крайна сметка, човек мисли и вижда това, което има в себе си. Дали ще си помислиш сега чисто от природна гледна точка да завидиш на някой, или да сравниш с някой, или да видиш някой момиче, или веднага да... Не бих казал, че това не е перманент нещо. Дали ще се изрази по друг начин и по друго време, не означава, че не е перманент качество като цяло. Не означава, че не е перманент залитане. Не знам всъщност да ви кажа. Струва ми се, че доста излизам от темата, защото много съм изморен, май е заради това, или съм просто бълък, нямам идея. Зато и сега ще вляза да се изкъпя и ще изчезвам да изляза навънка малко. Най-вероятно голяма част от вас няма да стигна до тази част на видеото, зато и ще кажа някакви други неща. Ми се струва, че малко е неизбежно да вентилирам в такива видеа, докато чета, защото в крайна сметка, аз ви давам, аз не ви чета само, ми ви казвам моите заключения и те са пряко свързани с това какъв съм аз, какви неща ми се случват. За което мисля, че е окей, поне за мен е окей, защото някакси доста приятно бих казал от време на време. Малко така, все едно хвърляш някаква тежест, която не знаеш, че си имал. Имаме такава известно време. Се чувствам малко по-лекичък след това. Не знам, нямам план да казвам нещо специфично. Мисля, че това беше за това видео. Казах миналото, че ще ползвам един друг микрофон. Ще го направя. Не знам кога ще го направя, но ще го направя, защото е тук този микрофон и що да не го ползвам. Да, това е. Пичове, беше до 89-та страница този път. Тая тема е направо 6 страници. Нали, на моменти кое е on being, точно не мога да разбереш. Нали, пак ти свършваш някакво изречение накрая. Споко, брат, не се притеснявай. Live according to nature, farewell. Да, нали, ти се знаеш едва ли не е farewell. Ама да, ще довършим другия път с тая тема. Тя, честно казвам, между другото, в тая книга, тъй като ви казах, че съм я чел вече 2 пъти, това е темата, която въобще не ми е интересен да я чета, защото някаква една такава суха теория ми идва малко, дето не мога да я приложа нещо физически. Да, както и да е. Хубаво пичуе, се чуе.